The book For a Lost Soldier is an autobiography by Dutch choreographer Rudy Van Danzig, published in 1986. It tells of his boyhood experiences in the last year of World War II. 6 years later, in 1992, Dutch film director Roland Kurbosch wrote a screenplay based largely on the book. However, he made some significant changes. Here are his words in an interview with theskykid.com. Quote, "The movie For a Lost Soldier is a romantic love story, a homosexual love story that could have been a heterosexual love story as well. The homosexual part of it is less important than the love story as such." Unquote. And that is exactly how I see it. It is a story about human love. The movie begins with adult choreographer Jeroen in Amsterdam 35 years after the war. He's trying to develop a ballet based on the liberation of the Netherlands from the Nazis in World War II. His ballet is not going well. Jeroen's intentions are not clear to his dancers. They're not even clear to Jeroen. We learn he has never resolved some of the difficult issues he encountered 35-plus years ago. His family had sent Jeroen off to stay with a foster family in rural Friesland, the northern part of the Netherlands. It was far out in the country, and food was plentiful there. The Nazis had cut off most food supplies to Amsterdam. Many Dutchmen died of starvation. Adult Jeroen has just received a letter telling him that Hate, his beloved foster father in Friesland, has died. Jeroen will go to the funeral. Will this be an opportunity to confront some of the old issues? At Hate's funeral, adult Jeroen is confounded to see his pubescent self step out of the church front door. It's a hugely dramatic and unexpected way to let us know adult Jeroen is revisiting his past. The youngster says, "I have to pee," and rushes to a nearby tree. Adult Jeroen protests the location, and the boy says, "Where else? You were here then." By that he means, "This is where you peed 35 years ago." Adult Jeroen tells the boy that he wants to ask him something, but the boy must hurry back into the church. The answer will come later. The scene changes. It's late 1944, and we see a building in Amsterdam. Young Jeroen and his mother are leaving their apartment, bicycling to meet a lorry. Many other children are also making the trip. When the children get to Friesland, it's very tough. Jeroen's foster family treats him well and are very patient, but the Friese dialect is almost a completely different language, and he has a terrible time communicating. Eventually he gets the hang of the language. He eats well, and things get better. But the winter is long, and time goes by very slowly. There are always rumors that the Allies are gaining on the Nazis, but in isolated Friesland, the locals don't see any action. After 5 months, the weather begins to change. Spring arrives. And then one day, the Nazis disappear. A small jeep convoy of Canadian soldiers makes its way into town. For this tiny section of Friesland, the war is over. Within a couple days, the community has a welcoming celebration for the soldiers. Although their languages separate them, there is feasting, singing, and dancing. Jeroen meets Soldier Walt, and they soon become best buddies. The music in the movie deserves mention at this point. The background music and ballet music was written by Joop Stokermans. It is only identified as music for a lost soldier. At the party, 4 soldiers, 2 of them dressed as women, sing Shaboom in front of a Friese audience. Oops, Shaboom wasn't written until a decade after the war. At the Get Acquainted dance, the close-ups of Jeroen drinking his Coca-Cola were stunning. He has a beautiful face, and his expressions were perfect to advance the story. The name of the Lindy Hop dance song is Count in Boogie. You might think it was really a Count Basie song from the 1940s, but no, It was written in 1992 and recorded by a studio band in the style of the big bands. The soundless Lindy Hop lesson Walt gives to Jeroen is an inspired bit of screenwriting. It instills trust and removes all bars to future touching. The next scene, with Jeroen walking down the road and Walt trying to get him in the Jeep, shows Jeroen is no pushover. He's playing hard to get. For a little while. It's cute, and it shows more imagination on the part of the movie makers. When the sudden thunderstorm overtakes Jeroen and Walt at the hotel, they huddle in the garage, looking at the rain. Walt crouches, and Jeroen leans on Walt's hunched shoulders. They are bonded. Beautiful, sensitive screenwriting. Jeroen's stutter step running across the flats shows he can still behave as a child, but shortly thereafter, Walt plays Jeroen's stutter step game with him. More lovely screenwriting. Later, as they're walking, Walt tells Jeroen, "The war made a man of me. Not a very happy one, so far. You know, when I first saw you, I was sure you were different. I was sure you were my kind of guy. So what kind of guy are you? You're special, Jeroen. You're really fucking special." Months before the Canadian soldiers arrived, Jeroen and his friend Jan had discovered a crashed airplane upside down in the water near Loxham. They attempted to explore it, but Jan cut himself on the jagged metal, and they had to give up. Now the plane would help create a deep bond between Jeroen and Walt. It was a joint effort that required both of them. Jeroen told Walt about the plane and asked him to row out to it the following Sunday. There, Walt discovered the two dead pilots. Part of a soldier's duty is to recover the bodies of his fallen comrades. Walt ordered his men to retrieve the plane and the bodies, which they did. The small local hotel has been commandeered as billets for the tiny Canadian garrison. At least the soldiers have some privacy and often entertain local girls. Walt has his own room. The shower scene is precious. Jeroen, tired of waiting in the Jeep for Walt to come out, enters the hotel only to find Walt taking a shower. Jeroen is fully dressed, but Walt grabs him and pulls him out of the shower as Jeroen chortles in glee. I guess Jeroen's clothes needed a good washing, too. There are exquisite scenes of Jeroen and Walt lying in bed together, caressing and kissing. Jeroen's actions are focused and deliberate. He seems fully adult despite his age. The day of total liberation of the Netherlands is at hand, and Jeroen's schoolteacher has each of his students write an essay on the occasion. Jeroen dawdles, and soon he's the only student left in the room with the teacher. The close-up of his face as he slips into reverie and relives his recent adventures is breathtaking. Martin Smith is absolutely perfect for this role. Later that day, Walt takes pictures of the Loxam family and friends. Jeroen and Walt hang in the hotel room. Walt says, "You make me happy, Jeroen." There seems to be something hidden in Walt's tone. We can sense it. Walt cannot bear to tell Jeroen the bad news. His unit is shipping out. Walt walks Jeroen home, and they are met by Haight. When Jeroen goes inside, Walt tries to make Haight understand that all the soldiers are leaving tomorrow. But Walt quickly realizes that the language barrier is insurmountable. The message is not delivered. The next day, Jeroen learns the soldiers have left. In absolute panic, he bicycles to every place he has ever been with Walt, hoping to find him. He searches the field where the soldiers had pitched their tents. He searches the hotel. He searches the downed airplane. Walt is not there. He sees soldiers working on the plane, but they are too far away to hear his shouts. He returns home to discover his shirt with Walt's picture has been washed, and the irreplaceable picture is ruined. He is awakened that night by lightning, and he tries to retrieve Walt's dog tags on the scarecrow in the pouring rain. He cuts his hand badly on the barbed wire and falls unconscious. All is in vain. Walt is gone without a trace. The next day, a letter from Jeroen's mother comes. He can come home to Amsterdam now. Soon she herself comes to fetch him. As Jeroen and his mother depart from Loxam on their bike, they pass the crashed airplane, recovered from the sea and suspended by its tail. As their bikes pass the hotel where Jeroen and Walt had intimately loved each other, Jeroen can only look for a second. We understand what emotions had to have washed over him. It's a heartbreaker. The scene changes to the ferry, but now it is the ferry 35 years later. It is returning adult Jeroen to Amsterdam after the funeral. Once again, boy Jeroen appears and speaks to adult Jeroen. Boy: "You were going to ask me something?" Man: "That photo. I didn't hear Haight ask for that." Boy: "Yes, I did. I heard. But I wanted to forget it." Man: "It was the only photo on that whole roll that came out." Perhaps this is the denouement, the moment the man understands how deeply he had been hurt in Friesland. The final scene has adult Jeroen once again rehearsing his dancers. His assistant, who knows Jeroen's story of Friesland, has had the 35-year-old photograph enlarged, and she gives it to Jeroen. But she also had a tiny section blown up, a close-up of Walt's dog tag hanging around the neck of the scarecrow. One can read Walt's whole name and serial number on it. Now Walt can be traced. Suddenly we know it has always been within Jeroen's power to find Walt, if only he had enlarged the photo. Of course, when he was young, he might not have known how to do that. Yet, as he grew older, he might have discovered it. So, is this a heaven-sent opportunity to search again for Walt? Or is it just another bitter loss, realizing that maybe a life of love has been squandered by a simple lack of knowledge? The movie has ended. The interpretation is up to you.